that I think if the Apostle Paul had been there the day that you first received your Bible and I received my first Bible, I think he would have given us 2 bits of instruction. I think he would have looked at you as a child or as an adult whenever you received your first Bible, and I think he would have said this. First of all, read the Old Testament for inspiration and motivation, but not application.
Read the Old Testament for inspiration and motivation, but not application. That blatant lie is why so many Christians mistakenly believe that grace is a New Testament idea. It comes from the notion that the death and resurrection of Messiah released grace on humanity for the very first time. Truth be told, the Most High's unmerited favor did not begin at Calvary. This is what a lot of preachers got wrong about the gospel, and it led to a confusing not under law but grace doctrine. It is my hope that Andy Stanley will read this passage from Romans 15:4. Paul is saying whatever things were written before were written for our learning, that we, through the patience and comfort of the Scriptures, might have hope. What were the things written before? He's talking about the Old Testament manuscripts, the sacred Scriptures. It says the things written before were written for our learning. So no, Paul would not have said that the Old Testament should be read for inspiration and motivation, but not application. They didn't have the New Testament writings in the days of Paul, and even if they did, Paul is making it clear that the Old Testament, the things written before, were written for our learning. So we need to go back to the Old Testament to get a better understanding of unmerited favor, commonly referred to as grace. Now, in the last session, we left off talking about this quote from a Greek scholar named Kenneth West. He's quoted as saying that grace or charis was always bestowed on those who were friends of the patron, never an enemy. However, when charis comes into the New Testament, it takes on an infinite leap forward because charis was no longer reserved for friends. It also extended to one's enemy. So let's dig into this and look at examples from the Old Testament to get a better understanding of its meaning as it pertains to Israel. Let's make sure we understand that in the Old Testament, it's not called grace or charis, the word that's used in the New Testament. It's Cain. It's Strong's 2580, Cain, and it means grace, favor, and charm. It originates from the root word Canaan, which means to be gracious or to show favor. Now, in the New Testament, it's Strong's 5485, as I said, charis, which is reflecting a similar concept of unmerited favor. Note that I said it's similar, but there are certain nuances of the word that Christians missed because they didn't have the cultural and historical background of the word. So we're going to dig into that and see how it connects to the covenant. And just a note here that as we go on, I'm using the word the way it's commonly used for ease of understanding. For those who already transitioned to the Hebraic version of the word, that's awesome. But I want to make it easy for those who are not there yet. So let's look at the cultural and historical background of this word. It says in ancient Hebrew culture, Cain was a significant concept that underscored the relational aspect of Yah's covenant with his people. It was understood as a divine attribute that was not earned but given freely. The idea of grace was central to the Israelites' understanding of their relationship with Yah, who chose them as his people not because of their merit, but because of his gracious love. Listen to excerpts from this article from Zondervan Academic. It says the covenant becomes the key to the administration of Yah's grace at several important moments in Israel's history. It references 2 Kings 13, where Hazazel, king of Syria, whom the Most High had raised up to discipline his own people, had been oppressing the kingdom of Israel. We are told that the Most High decided to be gracious toward his people and to preserve them. Why? Because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In other words, the basis for Yah's gracious dealings with his people in the midst of their continual sin and rebellion was the covenant promises he had made to the patriarchs. Righteous kings such as Hezekiah realized this, and in 2 Chronicles 30, we see him citing Yah's gracious covenant when he called the nation to repentance. The Israelites were conscious of their covenant history with Yah and deeply aware that these promises form the basis of their gracious standing before him. Let's go on. It says, given the importance of the covenant in Yah's gracious dealings with his people, the narrative of Yah's grace toward them was vital to Israel's identity. Hear what this is saying. The concept of the Most High's grace toward us was and still is vital to our identity. Listen to what this says here. It says in Exodus 12, Moses points the people toward a time when their descendants will have no first-hand memory of the events of the Exodus and no immediate understanding of the meaning of the Passover meal. We are the descendants being talked about here. We are the remnants waking up to the truth about who we are. So in this context, Moses, instructs them to recite and retell the story of Yah's great rescue of his people from Egypt. When a new generation asks, who are we? The answer is clear. We are Yah's special people whom he graciously rescued from slavery in Egypt. So Yah's grace forms the foundation of their national identity. They are a people formed by grace and sustained by grace. And we really need to get the understanding of this. And I'm going to use various passages to show how this is true. We can start by understanding that we were not chosen because we were so much better than the other nations. Moses is going to make that clear here in verse 24 of Deuteronomy 9. He says, you have been rebellious against the Most High from the day that I knew you. He didn't pull any punches. He didn't try to soften it in any way. So we need to set the record straight. Moses is saying, it was because of your rebellion that I was forced to fall down before the Most High for 40 days and 40 nights. Why did Moses do that? Because the Most High was ready to destroy us. Just pause and think on that. So Moses prayed and interceded for us and asked the Most High not to destroy his people and his inheritance. We are Yah's inheritance, his portion. And we'll touch on that later. But Moses reminded the Most High that he had redeemed his people through his greatness when he brought them out of Egypt with a mighty hand. Let me also say here that what Moses says about redemption makes it clear that redemption is not a New Testament concept either. Now look at what Moses is going to do next. He points back to the covenant. He says, "Remember thy servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look not unto the stubbornness of this people, nor to their wickedness, nor to their sin." So what we need to understand is that in spite of our imperfections, Yah chose us. Think about the potter's clay. The clay was in the potter's hand when it was being shaped and molded into a vessel. The potter found an imperfection. He found it in the clay, so he started over, but not with new clay. He began reshaping the same clay into a vessel that pleased him. Please get this, family. The Almighty made a choice concerning us. It's his right as sovereign. He entered into covenant with us not because we were already perfect. He was not looking at our merit or worth. He was looking at his. And now I want you to think about that word patron that we talked about in the last session. The patron is going to do for the subject what the subject is unable to do for himself. Listen to what Moses says in Deuteronomy 10:15 through 16. "Only the Most High had a delight in your fathers to love them, and he chose their seed after them, even you, above all people as it is this day." So you see confirmation that we were not all that in a bag of chips. This tells us that Abba had delight in our fathers to love them. So he chose them and their seed after them. That's us. But listen to what else Moses said. "Circumcise therefore the foreskin of your heart, and be no more stiff-necked." Well, how do you circumcise your own heart? Do we have the ability to circumcise our own hearts? So listen, we're looking at Deuteronomy 36 through 7. "And the Most High Yah will circumcise thine heart." Who's doing this? Yah's going to do it. He's going to circumcise our heart, and this is key, the heart of thy seed. To love the Most High Yah with all thine heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Most High Yah will put all these curses upon thine enemies and on them that hate you, which persecuted you. Do you see grace? It's not just unmerited favor. It's the power to do what he told us to do. So in that sense, you see what grace really is. It's not just receiving something because you believed. It's taking the next step to do what the patron is demanding so that he receives a return on his investment. In this sense, you have reciprocity. Yah brings about the change, the thing that the people cannot do for themselves. But don't miss this. It brings about the thing he wanted to happen in the first place. Our rebellion and disobedience was not a surprise to him, family. It was prophesied long ago. Moses knew it. Let's look at this from Deuteronomy 31 through 3. Moses says, "It shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon you, the blessings and the curse." Well, why would the curses come upon the people if they kept the laws, statutes, and commandments? No, Moses says, when all these things are come upon you, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before you, and you shall call them to mind, or you remember them among all the nations where the Most High has driven you. So Moses says, oh, this is going to come to pass. We see future tense. It shall come to pass when all these things are come upon you. Moses is not saying if, then. No, he's saying when. When all these things are come upon you, the blessing and the curse. So let that sink in. Now listen for grace that's going to empower us to do something. And you will also see the unmerited favor of the patron. He goes on to say, when you shall return unto the Most High and shall obey his voice according to all that I command you this day, you and your children, with all your heart and with all your soul, that then the Most High Yah will turn your captivity and have compassion on you, and will return and gather you from all the nations where the Most High Yah has scattered you. Probably say that again. It's not a New Testament concept that began at Calvary. So let's listen to the words here in Deuteronomy 29, 1 through 4. These are the words of the covenant which the Most High commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. And Moses called unto all Israel, and said unto them, you have seen all that the Most High did before your eyes in the land of Egypt unto Pharaoh, and unto all his servants, and unto all his land, the great temptations which thine eyes have seen, the signs, and those great miracles. Listen to this. Yet the Most High has not given you an heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear unto this day. Now here's what we know. There were many individuals in the Old Testament era who had a heart toward Yah. But we rise and fall as a nation. As a people, we didn't have eyes to see and ears to hear. So the patron, the sovereign, has to do for us what we could not do for ourselves. He knew what he wanted the outcome to be, so a temporary solution was put in place. And I'm speaking about the sacrifice of animals to atone for sin. The purpose for the law was to be the red light that says you missed the mark. And now you need to take the next step, which is to ask for help. You receive the help or the gift from the patron by faith, but it doesn't stop there. Something has to be bestowed, given to you, so that you can become what the sovereign wanted you to be in the first place. The last state is now better than the first. Well, what happened? The sovereign or the patron allowed conditions and consequences so that you would be brought to the end of yourself, so that you could see your need for help, like the prodigal son. When he woke up and came to himself, he knew that he had to return to his father's house. He had to go back to the place and be in the right position to receive the father's blessings. When he left his father's house, he didn't have eyes to see and ears to hear. The father waited him out, but when he returned, he received him with open arms. Listen to this from Deuteronomy 7, 8 through 12. Moses is speaking. He says, because the Most High loved you, and because he would keep the oath which he had sworn unto your fathers, has the Most High brought you out with a mighty hand, and redeemed you out of the house of bondmen, from the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. So Moses is telling us that all of this is built on the previous relationship. We didn't keep our part of the deal previously because of the condition of our heart as a nation. However, the Most High's word is not going to return unto him void. He gave a promise to our forefathers. So his initial intent concerning us is going to happen because his gifts and calling are without repentance. He chose us for a reason. And circumcision of the heart makes it possible for us to carry out his will. Moses goes on to say that Yah is faithful and he keeps covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Then he tells them that Yah also repayeth them that hate him to their face, to destroy them. He will not be slack to them that hate him. He will repay him to his face. So he says, thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command thee this day to do them. Wherefore it shall come to pass. So we're talking future tense here. If you hearken to these judgments and keep and do them, that the Most High Yah shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto thy fathers. So the idea of heart circumcision is a central component of the renewed covenant. The words in Deuteronomy highlights the covenant as a gift given to Israel. But there are mutual benefits. What do I mean by that? We're blessed for having received it, and Yah's will concerning us will also be accomplished. Now let's see how that word was defined in Baker's Evangelical Dictionary of Biblical Theology. It says the word grace in biblical parlance can, like forgiveness, repentance, regeneration, and salvation, mean something as broad as describing the whole of Yah's activity toward man, or as narrow as describing one segment of that activity. An accurate common definition describes grace as the unmerited favor of Yah toward man. In the Old Testament, the term that most often is translated grace is Cain. In the New Testament, it is charis. So it says the word Cain occurs around 60 times in the Old Testament. There are examples of man's favor to man, but the theological concept of importance to us is the grace of Yah demonstrated toward man. The term occurs most often in the phrase favor, in your, i.e., Yah's sight, or in the eyes of the Most High. This assumes the notion of Yah as a watchful master or king with the one who is finding favor, a servant, an employee, or perhaps a soldier. Let's go on. So this concept of grace, it says, first occurs in Genesis 6:8, where it's talking about how Noah found favor in the eyes of the Most High. So this unmerited favor is the common definition used for the word grace. I'll drop down. It says Noah is then described as having found favor in the eyes of the Most High, the themes of judgment and salvation in which the vast majority of humankind are condemned to destruction, while Yah finds favor on Noah. Noah and his family reoccurs often in connection with the idea of grace. Hence, concepts of election, salvation, mercy, and forgiveness are all linked in this first illustration of grace in the Old Testament. Now it says, interestingly, the rest of the references to favor in Genesis all describe favor in the eyes of man, as in the example of Jacob begging Esau's favor, and that's found in Genesis 32:5. Now let's look at another example of it being given as favor in the eyes of man, and it's the story of Rahab. This part is key to understanding certain concepts in the New Testament. The story is found in Joshua 2. The backstory here is that Rahab is a Canaanite prostitute. She lives in the city of Jericho, but the city is about to be conquered by the Israelites. This woman decides to hide the men Joshua sent to spy out the land. Don't miss the significance of her actions. Another nation is about to come in and destroy her homeland, but she helps the people who will be coming to wipe out her countrymen. If she was found out, she would have been killed because she was committing treason, but she took the risk. Why would she do that? So let's read it. It says, Joshua, the son of Nun, sent out of Chittim 2 men to spy secretly, saying, Go view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came into an harlot's house named Rahab, and lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, saying, Behold, there came men in hither tonight of the children of Israel to search out the country. So somebody told on her. And the king of Jericho sent unto Rahab, saying, Bring forth the men that are come to thee, which are entered into thine house, for they be come to search out all the country. And the woman took the 2 men and hid them, and said thus, There came men unto me. But she basically said, I don't know where they went. So Rahab lied. She lied to protect those who were about to come and destroy her country. Again, why would she do that? Now listen to what it says in verses 6 through 14. But she had brought them up to the roof of the house, and hid them with the stalks of flax, which she laid in order upon the roof. And the men pursued after them the way to Jordan unto the fords, and as soon as they which pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. And before they were laid down, she came up unto them upon the roof, and she said unto the men, I know that the Most High has given you the land, and that your terror is fallen upon us, and that all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. For we have heard how the Most High dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did unto the 2 kings of the Amorites that were on the other side Jordan, Sihon and Og, referring to the giants, whom ye utterly destroyed. And as soon as we had heard these things, our hearts did melt, neither did there remain any more courage in any man because of you. So she goes on to tell them about these things that she had heard, how the Most High destroyed the other nations, and how she was acknowledging that the Most High was the true God in heaven above and in the earth beneath. She goes on to say, Now therefore I pray you, swear unto me by the Most High, since I have showed you kindness, that you will also show kindness unto my father's house, and give me a true token, and that you will save alive my father and my mother and my brethren and my sisters and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. What is she asking for? To be saved. And the men answered her, Our life for yours, if you utter not this our business. And it shall be, when the Most High has given us the land, that we will deal kindly and truly with thee. So Rahab was willing to risk it all to save her life. You see her asking for favor. She asked them to show kindness to her and her father's house. Yes, she believed, but she took the next step. She acted on her beliefs and she did something. She did what she could to help the men of Israel. Do you see that she didn't just believe? Her actions saved her life. She knew that when they came into the city, they were going to destroy everything anyway. But Rahab was future focused. This woman knew that she needed help. So she took action and then she showed kindness to those who had the covenant. Those who were in covenant with the deity she knew to be the true God. And what did she ask for? A token, a promise that she would be saved. So the men gave her the stipulations. They told her what she had to do in order for her family to be saved, or they would be blameless of the oath. They called it an oath that she made them swear. They said, behold, when we come into the land, you shall bind this line of scarlet thread in the window which you did let us down by, and you shall bring your father, mother, brethren, all your father's household home unto you. They all had to be in her house. And it shall be that whatsoever shall go out of the doors of your house into the street, his blood shall be upon his head, and we will be guiltless. And whosoever shall be with you in the house, his blood shall be on our head, if any hand be upon him. And if you utter this our business, then we will be quit of thine oath. In other words, we're not held to this oath anymore, which you have made us swear. And she said, according unto your words, so be it. And she sent them away, and they departed, and she bound the scarlet line in the window. Do you see that her family could only be protected if they were in the house? Now let's see if we can find some examples of grace and how it pertains to Israel in the New Testament. Let's listen to Paul's words found here in Romans 15. He says, now I myself am confident concerning you, my brethren, that you also are full of goodness, filled with all knowledge, able also to admonish one another. But nevertheless, brethren, I have written more boldly to you on some points, as reminding you, because of the grace given to me by Yah. So here he's saying grace, or charis, has allowed him to speak boldly to the Gentiles. It has empowered him that I might be a minister of Yeshua to the Gentiles, ministering the gospel of Yah, that the offering of the Gentiles might be acceptable, sanctified by the Holy Spirit. Therefore I have reason to glory in Yeshua in the things which pertain to Yah. For I will not dare to speak of any of those things which Yeshua has not accomplished through me in word and deed, to make the Gentiles obedient. Well, obedient to what? It goes on. In mighty signs and wonders, by the power of the Spirit of Yah, so that from Jerusalem and round about to Illyricum I have fully preached the gospel of Christ. So he's glorying in the charis that has been given to him that allows him to speak boldly to the Gentiles. And he's admonishing the Gentiles or teaching them about certain things. And he's saying, I'm able to speak boldly as a result of the grace or this charis that's upon me. In verses 22 through 27, we're going to see him speak boldly about the obligation the Gentiles have toward Israel. He says, for this reason I also have been much hindered from coming to you, but now, no longer having a place in these parts, and having a great desire these many years to come to you, whenever I journey to Spain, I shall come to you. but I hope to see you on my journey and to be helped on my way there by you. So I'm hoping that you're going to assist me on this journey, if first I may enjoy your company for a while. But now I am going to Jerusalem to minister to the saints. Who are the saints there? The Israelites. And he's going to tell us why he's going to Jerusalem, to minister to them. Now, most would say that means he's going there to preach. No. In context, the word is talking about meeting their need. They were experiencing a severe famine, so Paul is taking an offering to relieve the financial pressures. Now listen carefully to what he says. He says, I am going to Jerusalem to minister to the saints, for it pleased those from Macedonia and Achaia to make a certain contribution for the poor among the saints who are in Jerusalem. So this contribution came as a result of the donations received from the assemblies in Macedonia and Achaia to minister or meet the needs of the saints in Jerusalem. And listen to what he said. It pleased them indeed, and they are their debtors. Listen, for if the Gentiles have been partakers of their spiritual things, their duty is also to minister to them in material things. What is Paul saying? He's admonishing the Gentiles and telling them they had an obligation to bless the people of the Most High. Why? Because they were partaking in spiritual things that belong to the chosen people. Let that sink in. Rahab put her life on the line to partake in the blessings of Israel. Paul says here that Gentiles have an obligation. He said it is their duty to minister. And again, this word is not talking about preaching. It's talking about Gentiles making contributions to the chosen people from their material possession. What is Paul pointing back to? Israel's blessing. Now, normally when you bring this subject up, folks automatically point back to the blessing of Abraham when Yah said to him that those who bless you will be blessed and those who curse you will be cursed. But that blessing passed on to Isaac and then Jacob. And it's reaffirmed here in Genesis 27:29 when Isaac blessed Jacob. He said this to him. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be those who bless you. So when Rahab put her life on the line to protect those spies, she was placing herself in a position to be blessed. She was given favor. Are you getting this? Let's make sure we understand that those who carried the blessing had the authority to extend it to her. So Paul's admonition to the Gentiles regarding being a blessing to the people of Yah was reaffirming what was already written. He made it clear that those who partake of Israel's blessings have an obligation, a duty to bless Yah's people. He's clear that the Gentiles in Macedonia and Achaia, modern day Greece, gave willingly. They didn't need to be compelled. And Paul saw their giving as the fulfillment of an obligation they had to the Israelites. The Gentiles had come in to share in Israel's spiritual blessings, blessings that belong to the children. Salvation belongs to them. It did not say salvation is of the Gentiles. Gentiles received a spiritual blessing through whom? The bloodline descendants of Israel. And don't think that this concept isn't known, you all. It is. Just look at the highlighted information here so that you can see how much this nation is giving to those who say they are us. More than 270 billion since World War II. The question is, are you really blessing those who are the bearers of the covenant and the blessing? Because when you look at the national debt, it's clear. The answer is clear. The U.S. national debt is over 35 trillion as of October 2024. A whopping 35 trillion, and you wonder why they continually steal the resources of other nations. They will never pay this off. So who are you really blessing? And guess what, family? That has not changed. The blessing is still on the books. Let's look at this from Isaiah 6:10 through 12. The sons of foreigners shall build up your walls, and their kings shall minister to you. We're not talking about preaching here. For in my wrath I struck you, but in my favor I have had mercy on you. What are we talking about here? When it says favor, this is the same word used for grace. Therefore your gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day or night, that men may bring to you the wealth of the Gentiles. This is a last day prophecy. And their kings in procession. For the nation and kingdom which will not serve you shall perish, and those nations shall be utterly ruined. Yah punished us by having our ancestors build up these other nations during our time of captivity, but the labor was not in vain. They will have to in turn build our walls. I hope you're hearing this. He says, in my favor, I have had mercy on you. And what comes with it? Wealth. The wealth of the nations. So, contrary to what theologians say, family, grace didn't start at the cross or at Calvary. Let's read this from Isaiah 26:10. Let grace be shown to the wicked, yet he will not learn righteousness. Let me read it again. Let grace be shown to the wicked, yet he will not learn righteousness. In the land of uprightness he will deal unjustly and will not behold the majesty of the Most High. So even though it was shown to all men, some will never receive it. I want you to listen carefully to these words from Zechariah 10:6, because the Most High is saying, He hears us because of who He is. He is our Father. I will strengthen the house of Judah, and I will save the house of Joseph. I will bring them back, because I have mercy on them. Listen, they shall be as though I had not cast them aside. So what did Marcion say? He characterized the Most High as a harsh creator God, compared with the God in the New Testament who was characterized by love and grace. He said Yah gave rules that couldn't be kept, and then he punished people for not keeping them. Is that what you see here? We see grace interwoven throughout Scripture. And so we have to look beyond Marcion. There is an enemy with a vested interest in portraying the Most High as a malevolent and harsh deity. Satan wants us to accuse Yah. He wants us to say he's not good. Why? because of the judgment that he received, the judgment the other fallen angels received for their actions. Why weren't they given a second chance? That's the charge against the Most High. The judgment against them is already set. Hell was not made for man, but misery loves company, right? And we know that it is the evil one who wants us to accuse the Father unjustly. But we stand against that because Abba Yah is good and he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. So let's wrap up with this from Matthew 25:40 through 41. In this passage, Yeshua talks about how he will judge the nations. For those who are interpreting this passage correctly, they know that he's talking about giving favor to those who help his people in their time of need. We're going to see what happened to those who didn't. So it says, and the king will answer and say to them, assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me. Then he will also say to those on the left hand, depart from me, you cursed, into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. Why are they cursed? This is pointing right back to Israel's blessing. Those who bless you will be blessed. Those who curse you will be cursed. Where will the cursed go? Into the everlasting fire prepared for the devil and his angels. But here's what you also need to understand. The favor that we have received is also the result of us being Yah's portion. He chose to make us his people. So when you harm and mistreat what belongs to him, you're doing it to him. And he said, vengeance is mine. So if this message has been a blessing to you, please remember to hit the like and share it. You're also welcome to subscribe if you have not already done so. We normally upload messages on Sunday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Yah willing. Join me next time.